ISGF welcomes you all to the deep dive workshop on blockchain innovation and adoption in electric utilities at ACEF 2021. I request all the participants to kindly keep their microphones on mute and turn the camera off during the workshop. So this is our today's agenda. We have a quick welcome address and introduction to the global environment for blockchain innovation and adoption in utilities by Ms. Reena Suri from ISGF. Session 1 is regulatory and policy environment for blockchain innovation and adoption in utilities. And the panelists are Mr. R.P. Singh, Chairman UPERC India, Mr. Rajendra Kumar, Additional Secretary, Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, Mr. Santosh K. Mishra, CEO, Tamil Nadu E-Governance Agency, and Mr. Ganesh Srinivasan, CEO, Tata Power DDL. The second session is maturity and usability of blockchain-based applications for utilities, and the panelists are Ms. Gemma Green, co-founder and chairman, Power Ledger, Mr. Oril, head of business development, Energy Web Foundation, Mr. Lauren Gamaroff, CEO, Ban Ki-moon, and my apologies, in place of Mr. Reggie Kumar Pillai, we have Mr. Tony from Energy Blockchain Consortium. And the moderator for the session will be Mr. Sudhasata Kundu, Senior Manager, ISGF. I would like to invite Ms. Reena Suri, Executive Director, India Smart Grid Forum, for the welcome address and introduction to the global environment for blockchain innovation and adoption in utilities. And Reena ma'am is also our moderator for the first session, Regulatory and Policy Environment for the blockchain innovation and adoption in utilities. I'll just give a brief introduction about Reena ma'am. Ms. Reena Suri brings over 20 years of experience in the energy sector. She is responsible for the research projects, advisory services, business development, training and capacity building programs, customer outreach activities, members relations and finances of ISGF. I will also give a quick brief introduction about our panelists. Joining the panel discussion, we have Shri R.P. Singh, Chairman, Uttar Pradesh Electricity Regulatory Commission, India. Shri R.P. Singh took charge as Chairman of UPERC in 2018 and has dealt with policy formulation, budgeting, implementation, monitoring and coordination, personal management and service delivery aspects of public administration at the state government and central government levels in India. Welcome, sir. We have Mr. Rajendra Kumar, Additional Secretary, Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, Government of India. Sir has over 27 years of experience in the Indian administrative services in senior positions in public policy and administration at both state and federal levels in India. Welcome, sir. We have Mr. Santosh K. Mishra, CEO of Tamil Nadu E-Governance Agency. Sir is Secretary Commissioner E-Governance, Government of Tamil Nadu, and Vice Chairman of PMG FinTech Center of Excellence, Chennai, which was established as a joint venture between Government of India and Government of Tamil Nadu. Welcome, sir. We also have Mr. Ganesh Srinivasan, CEO, Tata Power DDL. Sir brings with him 2 decades of experience in areas like power utility, infrastructure, automotive, product development, and manufacturing. He spearheaded strategy, operations, transformations, and organizational development in his preceding roles. Welcome, sir. I would like to now hand over the stage to Ms. Reena Suri, ISGF. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Parul. And I would like to start with extending a very warm welcome to all our speakers and panelists and participants to this deep dive workshop on blockchain innovation and adoption in electric utilities. This is being organized in partnership with Global and Smart Energy Federation and as part of the Asia Clean Energy Forum 2021, which is organized annually by Asian Development Bank. And the main theme for this year's program is to accelerate the low carbon transition in Asia and the Pacific region. So I'd like to welcome our panelists again, Mr. R.P. Singh, sir, Mr. Rajendra Kumar, Mr. Santosh Mishra, Mr. Ganesh Srinivasan, Ms. Gemma Green, Mr. Oriol, Mr. Lorian Gamarov, Mr. Tony Giroti, my colleague Sudasatta, and our president, Mr. Reggie Kumar Pillai, to today's workshop. So would like to talk a little bit about the global environment for blockchain innovation and adoption that is required for the utilities. So as we all know that blockchain is a groundbreaking technology. It is built on distributed ledger for keeping permanent and tamper-proof records of transactional data. It has piqued its attention for energy management and technology, not only in the national governments, academic institutions, but also the energy companies and technology providers. So blockchain promises a transparent and secure system that can enable new business solutions, especially when combined with smart contracts, which means that this distributed digital transaction technology, it allows for securely storing data and executing smart contracts in peer-to-peer networks. So we have in a lot of workshops and seminars, we have heard a lot about what benefits the technology brings on board, and the various kind of proof of concepts that are going around in different parts of the world. So the electric utilities are at present, as we see, that they are at a cusp of energy transition. With the advent of the distributed renewable generation resources, which push the system to move from a centralized generation, transmission and distribution to a new era of decentralized systems. The energy industry has been consistently catalyzed by the innovations, including the rooftop solar, the electric vehicles getting connected to the grid, the smart metering being introduced. So we see that with the kind of promises that we have seen from blockchain technology, that it has the potential to unleash an energy revolution altogether. So it has attracted the attention of power industry and its potential to support various use cases, including electricity trading, green energy certificates, smart meter operations with peer-to-peer transactions going on. So over the past years, we have seen a host of utilities engaging with this technology, and with the launch of pilots across the world to better manage the overall grids, energy transaction in the grid, which are becoming grids which are becoming smarter by the day. So the blockchain industry has expanded over the past year, has expanded exponentially. And the advancements are not only in the energy, but we have also seen it across a broad range of sectors that are compelling the government to consider their policy response in some cases, whether to embrace the technology within their own institutions as well. So also we have seen that increasing number of government organizations around the world are already leveraging or planning to leverage blockchain technology to provide cybersecurity, process optimization, and integrate the hyperconnected services while bolstering trust and accountability. So it can also support an area of government and public sector applications, including payments using digital currency, land registrations, identify management, and identity management, supply chain traceability, healthcare, and so on and so forth. So fulfilling blockchain's potential, it depends largely upon a policy environment and support innovation and experimentation, while acknowledging and mitigating the risk that could be involved. So what is clear right now is that the policy and regulatory framework for this disruptive technology are underdeveloped. A lot of pilots are going around, and different kind of regulations are being tested in a sandbox kind of an environment. And this technology is inherently of a borderless nature. So it's very important to take into account all these experiences that are coming out of different pilots from around the world. So to explore the policy implications of this technology and to develop an effective policy framework, learning from the use cases from around the world for a viable innovation and adoption in the energy sector, ISGF has been conducting workshops, seminars, bringing experts and stakeholders together who have an understanding of the varied use cases of this technology, and to discuss the progress towards a global policy framework, as well as what is required to develop a national level policy in a particular country or for a particular use case. ISGF has also conducted two pilots in India to test the peer-to-peer trading of rooftop energy in using the blockchain platform. So with this objective, we are conducting this workshop to examine the technological, the policy, the regulatory challenges that are there in adoption of blockchain applications in the utilities, and the different models of governance and regulations in an increasingly decentralized world of electric utility which are required. So with that, I would like to start today's first session on regulatory and policy environment for blockchain innovation and adoption in utilities. And I would like to invite each panelist to please give their introductory statements of 2 to 3 minutes, and I will be coming back to them with specific questions after as a second round. So with that, I would like to request Mr. R.P. Singh to please give your introductory remarks.
Thank you, Rina, for giving me this opportunity. You have very eloquently outlined the blockchain area technology application, its present challenges, and how we can move forward. The government, as of now, there is a absence of policy, which is becoming a somewhat hindrance in its adoption in a massive way. This inhibition on the government is mainly because of, it is very much concerned about the disruption which may arise out of the blockchain, because it is a distributed one. No one can be held accountable. And the government also doesn't have any mechanism to control these because it's largely distributed. And that has led to a legal and regulatory absence, and which is somewhat inhibiting the growth of blockchain technology in most of the areas where it can expand and provide services to every stakeholder. And some of the examples are like, for example, smart contract sanctity has to be given a legal one, so that when we execute the peer-to-peer energy trading one or whatever, then it is a legal document which is on which we are working. So if these challenges are overcome, then perhaps we will have a very robust and very dynamic blockchain opportunities in all sectors, especially the fintech sector or the regulatory compliance areas which you had outlined, like proof of delivery of digital assets or audit and accounting, etc., etc. And also, you rightly mentioned that in the power sector, there is a tremendous potential for application of blockchain technology, especially in billing and metering or peer-to-peer energy trading on the rooftop, solar prosumers and consumers, or CO2 emission trading. So these things should be promoted, and these all can happen with a regulatory and legal framework environment if it is provided by the government. And I hope that in the coming days and years, when we have successfully demonstrated the viability of the technical as well as financial viability of the pilot projects which we have undertaken under the regulatory sandbox mechanism, we'll be able to convince everyone, including the government, to come up. Because there are, especially in the power sector, I'll highlight, there are tremendous potential in India. As we all know that there is a rooftop solar framework which is existing in all states. and the consumer categories have been given different type of accounting framework like net metering and gross metering, etc. So I presume everyone knows. So this is providing an opportunity for trading amongst the prosumers and the consumers, because there are consumers like industrial and commercial who are buying power from the DISCOM at a higher rate, whereas these prosumers can provide them energy at a lower rate. So this can happen, and this has been successfully demonstrated through the pilot we had undertaken in our state in collaboration with and Power Ledger Incorporated. So I feel that there is a tremendous potential, and if we bring out the right type of regulation, the sky is limit for blockchain technology application in this country. Thank you. Thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you so much for the introductory message, sir. So I would like to request now Mr. Rajendra Kumar, sir, to kindly give his introductory remarks on the topic, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Good evening to all the panelists, and thank you for inviting me here. So when we talk about blockchain, it's an area that METI is currently dealing with in terms of promoting this as a key area of emerging technologies. METI already has done some POCs for some e-governance domains in this for this technology. Like in Telangana state, we did a pilot for property registration in Shamshabad district, which is now currently live and running. So there, what we have done is that we have developed a blockchain DLT system for property records, which is running in parallel to the regular database. So the idea is to first demonstrate the full potential of the technology, do a full POC, and then allow the stakeholders to understand what benefits they can derive from adopting this emerging technology, and how the systems can be made more robust in terms of, no possibility of hacking or doing any kind of other things that that could have been possible in the regular systems. So that's one step that we have taken. We also have published a national strategy on blockchain, which was in public domain just till a few weeks back for feedback and comments. We have had very good interaction with the stakeholders on this document, and we have received feedback and comments, which we are now analyzing, and we hope to come out with a national strategy on blockchain very soon. That won't be a binding law or something, but that's a kind of a policy intent that we want to put out in public domain for all the stakeholders, including government departments, state governments, and all the private agencies to really understand as to how this technology can be used for offering better services, to ensure that all the transactions, they become immutable, and the confidence and trust in those transactions can be increased on behalf of all the stakeholders. We also are developing a national blockchain platform. This is being done by METI, so that this can serve as a reference technology platform for blockchain. And we also are going to implement a few domain areas as the key areas for implementation using this technology that will serve to show the potential of blockchain, so that more departments can come forward to adopt this technology. We also have provided for a sandbox where we are encouraging startups and innovators to come forward and use this platform for developing applications and for bringing more entities on board for adopting this technology. This already work is now progressing, and we hope that in the coming months, METI would be able to really build this platform as a national platform for blockchain, and be able to offer to the concerned entities for using it. In terms of the potential for the power sector, already Mr. R.P. Singh mentioned about that, so I did not repeat that, but let me just mention here that this holds tremendous potential, and as a nation, we must try to put resources to ensure that this technology develops. We currently see most of the research in blockchain is coming from a few countries like US and China and a couple of other countries. We are not in the top 3 or top 5 of the world. So that's where I think we need to put our efforts together. We need to bring all the stakeholders to understand that this is a prime area for development of this futuristic technology. And we must put enough resources. We must enthuse our academicians, our researchers, our R&D institutions to take up this for research and for development. And I think the efforts that we have taken in METI to develop a national blockchain platform that aims to bring all the stakeholders together, including researchers, academicians, our universities and institutions, and also startups and innovators. So this, I think, would really help in giving the required fillip to the development of this technology. And I'm sure that in the time to come, we would see very exciting developments in blockchain in India. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, and congratulations on the excellent work METI is doing for the promotion and adoption of blockchain. We'll be coming back to you to get more details on some specific use cases you mentioned, sir. So with that, I'd like to request our next panelist, Mr. Ganesh Srinivasan, to kindly give your introductory remarks.
Thank you, Lina. Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible, sir.
Thank you. So from a blockchain perspective, we, just like other panel members mentioned, we as Startup Bar have been looking at blockchain from multiple elements. We are looking at it from...
Your voice is a little low. Can you be a little louder?
Okay. Is it better now?
Much better, yes.
So we have been looking at blockchain from 3 perspectives. One is, of course, the peer-to-peer trading that our panelists also spoke about. I'll speak a little bit more about that. Second very interesting application that we have been looking at is how we use blockchain for optimizing energy costs for customers. Because we have a very complicated ecosystem where we have ESCO partners, financiers, equipment suppliers, the customer, the DISCOM, perhaps a trader as well. So there are multiple agencies involved here, and it appears that blockchain is a very this is a very apt use case for from a blockchain perspective. And thirdly, very traditional financial transactions like letter of credit and other aspects like commercial papers. They've been trying to use blockchain for that. So these are the 3 applications that we have been actively looking at. Of course, there are many other more complex applications like at one end of the spectrum, we have like grid settlements, which ideally can be done by blockchain, but it's quite complicated. So we're taking it step by step there. I think as the panelists also spoke earlier, one of the biggest bottlenecks or the challenges is to get a favorable or a conducive regulatory environment. And to make that happen, Tata Power DDL, at least in Delhi, has undertaken this pilot in collaboration with ISGF and Power Ledger, and working with our customers, 7 customers who are participating on the blockchain enabled years, and that's been going on for the in fact, we are testing multiple trading tools such as a fixed trading price or a hybrid or a dynamic trading, preferential trading. So multiple trading logics that we want to test out to see both customer behavior as well as what kind of benefit the customers can get, and then go back to the regulator to show what kind of benefit this can give to customers, consumers, as well as, of course, to the distribution companies. Now, there are, of course, the benefit to customers and consumers is quite clear. There are a few elements perspective that need to be addressed as far as companies are concerned. When it's peer-to-peer trading, one of the question marks that do arise is this similar to open access, and how is this different from open access, because the customer is not procuring power from the DISCOM but is procuring from another entity. That another entity in this case is not a generator or a trader but is another customer. How can that be handled? I think that's an important regulatory question that needs to be addressed. And if all the surcharges and the cross subsidies etc. are levied, then it's almost impossible to have the business case work out for a peer-to-peer trading. So this is one very important aspect that needs to be addressed. The second is in the recent rules for customers that have been defined by the Ministry of Power, the prosumer has been defined for the very first time. And even there, it is very important to clarify whether the prosumer has the right to supply power to other customers, and or does he or she have the right only to supply to the distribution company? There is an interpretation involved there. So I think these are a couple of nuances that need to be addressed. But most importantly, the more pilots and proof of concepts will give the feel of both the technology. One of the reasons why we went ahead with this pilot, of course, one is the understanding of the business case, but also to understand how the underlying technology works. Because we have about 2 lakh smart meters installed in our customer base, so we have a very good foundation we can start using the peer-to-peer trading. So how do we fully utilize the smart meter infrastructure which is there, and how do we show that benefit to the regulator, so that the state regulator, so that he or she can take it forward and frame the regulations appropriately. So we are in that journey as of now. I think the steps as far as doing these pilots are concerned, and I'm sure many more states will follow, and the data and the benefits will be quite clear to take the regulatory journey forward. So I'm really looking forward to the discussion, and these are very exciting times. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Srinivasan, for sharing, from a utility perspective, what are your expectations and about the pilot which Tata Power has conducted, and your plans for further adoption of the technology. So I would now like to go back to, I think Mr. Santosh Mishra, sir, are you there? He just messaged me that he's stuck still in a meeting, and will join as soon as the meeting gets over, if he is still around, with the panel. So with that, I would like to go back to Mr. R.P. Singh, sir. So first of all, congratulations on the successful implementation of the very first pilot for peer-to-peer trading for solar energy on blockchain in Uttar Pradesh, in India. So I would like to hear from you on what has been, from a regulatory perspective, regulator's perspective, your experience been with this pilot, and what are your plans for going forward for further adoption of the technology in the utility in Uttar Pradesh?
Thank you, Reena ji. First of all, to give a legal perspective, there are certain provisions in the Electricity Act which mandate the state commission to explore into these type of works. Like, for example, Section 86(1)(e) lays out that the state commission shall promote co-generation and generation of electricity from renewable energy sources by providing suitable measures for connectivity with the grid and sale of electricity to any person. So rooftop solar regulations have been already brought out in line with this legal provision. And then 86(1)(j) also mandates the state commission to fix the trading in the intra-state trading. So interstate is being done by the Central Electricity Commission, and intra-state is being done by the State Electricity Commission. So the prosumers can be allowed to trade their own generated energy within the state by the Number two is there is already a power given to the state commissions to lay out regulations with respect to carry out the functions assigned to it under the Act and the rules. So this gives us some basis to work and move forward on framing regulation on the peer-to-peer. However, that will be only limiting into the technical aspect of the peer-to-peer energy trade. And the recent pilot has successfully demonstrated that the energy can be transacted and traded between different consumer categories, that is prosumer and consumers, or a mix of that. And what the pilot did is that with the smart meter, there was a Internet of the Things attached to it, and that was, shared with the head-end server through a telecom network, and through internet, then it goes to the blockchain platform, which has got linkage with the application program interface for customer trading, and that generates and is interfaced again with the billing system of the DISCOM. So we have reached till the energy accounting aspect of the blockchain technology. Now we have to move and complete the financial transaction part of it. Now, the moment it comes to the financial transactions, there are issues which needs to be addressed, because if it is happening by way of trade, that trade has to be verifiable. And of course, we can do it, but ultimately, whether this trade is verifiable or not, that can happen if there is some sort of legal clarity is provided. We welcome the clarification given by Additional Secretary Mighty that a draft policy has been laid out. And I hope we'll go through that and try to extract something to our advantage to legitimize this process. So once it is done, I think the next step is that we will go for another pilot to demonstrate the financial integrity of the whole transaction system, and in a very gradual manner, we'll try to limit it within the distribution company domain only, so that it remains a controlled environment. Because if it goes from one distribution company to another distribution company, there are a lot of associated challenges which emerge. So that is the next step we are planning to undertake. That is to allow a second pilot for establishing the financial transaction viability. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. And you've been a pioneer, in bringing the right regulations around initiation of adoption of blockchain. And we look forward to, and I'm sure, others will also look forward to having more, adoption, the regulations in place for larger adoption in India. So thank you so much, sir. And I'll go back to now, Mr. Before I request Mr. Rajendra Kumar, sir, I have a question for Mr. Ganesh Srinivasan. From a utilities perspective, we wanted to again hear you. I know you have put down your points already regarding, what your expectations is, but going forward for achieving the plans that the Tata Power or a utility has for having multiple use cases of blockchain in utility energy sector. What is the kind of support you think you would require from policymakers on a national basis or a state level to help you with having this innovation in the utility?
Right. I think this, of course, I think the peer-to-peer part is quite clear what is required. But I think if I were to really think big, then one of the most important applications of blockchain can be the grid settlements that we do with across distribution companies, generators. So the whole state load dispatch center can adopt blockchain as a mechanism to settle energy time slot wise. And I think that is something that really requires a lot of work, because it's not only policy. I think the real bottleneck is the fact that the interface meters between the transmission and distribution boundaries are not real-time communicating with, or not communicable. So today we have a situation wherein whether for deviation settlement, the meters that exist at the periphery of transmission distribution, since they are not communicating, they have to be read manually, and then the data flows like in a traditional setup. Now, I think there's a huge opportunity for both time saving, cost saving, effort saving, most importantly, if the SLDCs can adopt blockchain. And for that, the necessary infrastructure needs to be there, which is the interface meters need to communicate a real-time basis. And so I think that is something that will really prove the full power of blockchain, because it's a distributed ledger and multiple parties are involved. That will really showcase the entire use case very in a very powerful manner. So I think that is one application that I'm really looking forward to. As a distribution entity, of course, peer-to-peer is one application. Now there are more things that can get integrated. Storage can get integrated. Electric vehicles can get integrated with such a platform. So once it's as long as solar rooftop can very well be replaced by a battery, can be replaced by a vehicle to grid. So as long as it's a power source, it really doesn't matter whether it's a rooftop or otherwise. So there are multiple applications. I think we need to make a beginning. Solar rooftop is a very clear case. So I would say that if we can start that, then the journey can be taken forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Srinivasan. One question before I move on. I don't know if we'll get the time later, but there's a question from the audience. They want to know, is it mandatory to implement smart grid technology to, first to have any kind of blockchain implementation in the grid, or we can just move forward with blockchain without any compulsion to have smart grid implemented?
Yeah, I think smart meters are a necessity. In my view, I think smart meters are necessary to because you need real-time information. It may not be very much required for having 30-minute or 15-minute time slot-wise data for the real-time trading to happen, and then that transaction is actually time-stamped and stored as part of a blockchain. So there is a need for at least smart metering as part of the basic foundation.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Srinivasan, for answering that question. I'll now request come back to Mr. Rajendra Kumar. Sir, you have already highlighted a number of excellent initiatives which MeitY has undertaken for testing and supporting the technology implementation. But would you be able to highlight some of the interventions or undertaken or planned for promotion in the energy sector per se, or for further adoption and supporting in particularly the energy sector?
Yeah, so MeitY has been working with a number of ministries here in Government of India, and also with different state governments for various domains of government services. And one case that I mentioned was about the property records, which is currently live in Telangana in Shamshabad district, where the MeitY implementation project is running now. And here what we have done is that we are running it in parallel to the regular database that we are having for property registration. Now there to have only the blockchain based framework, we would need to really make changes in the Registration Act, because technically, if you have a blockchain, then you don't need the registrar's office in between. The vendor and vendee can directly interact through the blockchain platform, and if we can recognize that legally, then technically that is a possibility. So if we want to really exploit the full potential of blockchain, then we would need to amend the regulations probably in certain domains, definitely. And we need to also promote a culture of, adopting this technology, creating awareness, so that this can be done at a wider level. So that's one point which is relevant from the point of view of the policy framework that we are talking about. Second, I saw some questions in the chat window about the METI's documentation on this. So let me just inform again that even now, even though the window for the feedback is over, but the document is still available in public domain on METI's site. So you can all access and you can read what the thoughts of METI are on this technology. Let me also mention that this is just one of the emerging areas where METI is focusing. As many of you may be aware, METI has unveiled a vision of 1 trillion digital economy by 2025, and emerging technologies is a major domain of that effort. And along with other emerging areas like AI, then augmented reality, etc., IoT, 5G, this forms a bouquet of these highly promising emerging domains, which can really help in modernizing our economy, kick-starting the startup ecosystem, making them internationally competitive, and helping in propelling us to the dream of $5 trillion GDP and 1 trillion of digital economy. So this is all being now done by METI under its broad oversight. And we also have set up a center of excellence in blockchain and in a number of other areas. There are 22 of them currently working, where we are working with industry partners across the entire country with all the major industry domains, where we are funding, bringing startups to these centers of excellence. And the technology that they're developing, we are bringing that to industry so that they can be utilized. And a number of the startups have graduated and they have obtained funding from outside. They are growing now and they are becoming visible. So all this effort is to ensure that areas like blockchain are brought to prominence and we can take full advantage both as a country and in terms of promoting our talent.
Thank you so much, sir, for sharing the insights. But two things I wanted to ask, and I'm sure our audience is also very curious to know. One, one of the audience member has asked that is the blockchain platform that is being developed for the startups, is it available for them to explore? Anyone to explore on your website? And you mentioned about the Center of Excellence. If anyone would like to be part of that, what is the way forward? They can just connect through the website?
Definitely. So STPI is the agency that is running the Center of Excellence. So you can get in touch with our STPI. And you can write to METI as well. There is no issue in that. You can reach out to any of the senior officers in METI. And you can become part of this entire that we are doing. And this platform that we're developing, that is under development now, and we hope to open that up for participation very soon. There is a sandbox there. So we would encourage all innovators to come forward and use this sandbox environment for doing innovations and really, I mean, making that available to the wider ecosystem for the IT domain in India. So you're most welcome to join with us.
Thank you so much, sir. I think we are a bit out of time, so won't be able to take more questions from the audience, but we'll definitely back to you with the answers on the the chat window itself, or we'll be writing back to you with the responses. So with that, I would like to extend a big thank you to our panelists, Mr. Ganesh Srinivasan, Mr. R.P. Singh, and Mr. Rajendra Kumarji, for kindly sparing your time and sharing your insights about adoption of blockchain technology in the energy sector. And for Mr. Kumar to share all the work that you are doing for adoption in a larger domain. So thank you so much again, and apologies from Mr. Mishra. He was not able to join, but if he joins later, we will have the insights from him later during the session. So big thank you again, and we will now move on to our second session. Over to you, Parul.
Thank you.
Sorry, before we move forward, and I request you to again switch on your camera, Mr. Srinivasan and R.P. Singh, sir. We'll just try to take a picture together. Parul? Is it done, Parul?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. And
thank you very
we'll
much,
be in
sir.
touch.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Miss. Thank you,
Thank you
Rinaji.
so much, Mr. Singh.
Very much.
Thank you so much, sir. So we'll, Parul, over to you for announcing the second session.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much to all our panelists for a very insightful discussion. We will move forward with the second session of the day, which is maturity and usability of blockchain-based applications for utilities. Joining this discussion, we have Dr. Gemma Green, co-founder and chairman, Power Ledger Australia. In 2016, Dr. Gemma co-founded Power Ledger, which won Sir Richard Branson's Extreme Tech Challenge. Setting her career trajectory early on, Dr. Green became the voice of sustainability and corporate social responsibility in the business of big money financing while at JP Morgan in London. In 2018, ma'am was made EY FinTech and Entrepreneur of the Year. Welcome, ma'am. We have Mr. Oriel. Welcome, ma'am. We have Mr. Oriel, Director of Business Development, Energy Web Foundation with us. Mr. Oriel leads the establishment of strategic partnerships with energy stakeholders, including grid operators, utilities, OEMs, and developers, among others. Welcome, sir. We have Mr. Lauren Gameroff, founder, CEO of Banki-Moon, which is a blockchain and cryptocurrency consultancy, and co-founder, CEO of CentP, a cryptocurrency payments and remittance company. He also serves as a Bitcoin Association ambassador. Welcome, sir. We have Mr. Tony Girotti, Chairman in Energy Blockchain Consortium. Mr. Girotti is a serial entrepreneur with over 25 years of experience in applying information technology in various industries, including the energy sector. Welcome, sir. The moderator for this session is Mr. Sudasatta Kundu, Senior Manager, Technical Advisory, India Smart Grid Forum, with the experience of more than 10 years in the energy sector. With that, I would like to invite Mr. Sudasatta for moderating the session. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Parul. And good afternoon, good morning, and good evening to everyone. And I welcome all the panelists in this deep dive workshop on maturity and usability of blockchain-based applications for the utilities. And welcome you all. And as you all know that currently the grid is moving from a centralized to a more decentralized grid. And the energy transition is happening with the integration of more flexibility resources in the terms of EV, solar, renewables, other DERs. And India is moving, if you take the example of India, India is also moving towards, India has also set a target of 100% electrification of transport electrification by 2030 and 450 gigawatt of renewable by 2030, out of which 300 gigawatt of solar. So if you see how this flexibility resources are getting integrated to the grid, the business process and the operational process of the utilities are going to change and going to impact. And one of the most talked thing today is the decentralization, digitalization, and the democratization, which is 3D, which is a key facilitator for this energy transition. And if we see blockchain being one of the key contributors to these 3Ds, and it's helping in and facilitating in this energy transition, and it's one of the major disruptor for various energy industry use cases. So with this, I will request Gemma to focus to express her views actually on how the blockchain technology is going to impact the distribution utility business processes and what Power Ledger is doing in this field to help utilities with this technology. Over to you. You are on mute, Gemma, I think. I'm not audible.
Thank you. I'm just going to share my screen.
Yes, sure.
One moment. Can you see my screen sharing?
It's not. Till now, it's not. It's fine. You can see it.
Great. this is just a slide about how we use the blockchain. So we have a twin token system on the Power Ledger software platform, which allows tracking and trading of electricity, trading of environmental commodities, and flexibility services. We record electricity transactions on our proprietary in-house blockchain, and we'll shortly be launching more information about our new blockchain that is really very fit for purpose for electricity markets. It's got a super fast block time, it's very, very scalable, and almost no fees for writing transactions to the blockchain. So it's very suitable for the electricity use case. We have a cryptocurrency called the Power Token, which clients can use to pay for their software license to use the Power Ledger platform, but they can also pay in cash as well. But they're relatively incentivized to pay in the Power Token because they have the ability to have that returned to them in the event that they stop using the platform. Whereas if they pay their software license in cash, they don't get it back. We've been operating for 5 years, and we have about 20 projects in more than 9 countries. And I'm just going to talk to you a little bit now about why we set the company up. I'm having a bit of trouble turning. Here we go. This is a slide about something that happened in 2017, but also referring, if you look at 2015 on the graph, what you can see is that the levelized cost of solar electricity dropped below coal, meaning that for the first time in history, it was cheaper to make a kilowatt hour of electricity with the sun's rays than by any other means. And for anyone that's interested in the future of our planet, which is presumably most people, they got very excited about this. And it was a pretty big deal. Lots of places started investing more heavily in renewables. And yet since 2015, the price of electricity has actually gotten more expensive, and we've had rolling blackouts in places like California and Texas. And we actually have a correlation between the use of variable renewable energy and high costs. You can see that here, with Germany being the poster child for renewables, which is among the worst place. We have to ask ourselves, why is it that cheap solar, photovoltaics and wind aren't translating into cheaper and more resilient grids, but rather the opposite? My name, as I was introduced, is Gemma Green, and I'm a co-founder and the chairman of Power Ledger, and we are a company that's really dedicated to making renewables work for the grid, the opposite of this graph that you're looking at. And we see the key problem. We see this as being the key problem, and sharing of solar photovoltaic energy between prosumers to avoid exporting energy to the grid and causing issues such as reverse flows, voltage and reactive power issues is really key to allowing renewables to grow in a scalable way. Now, people get a bit confused about what the blockchain is and what it isn't. It's not really an end into itself. It's really a means to an end. And we see like the blockchain a little like barcodes and scanners in the way that they transform supermarkets. It's a great technology, you know, but like a barcode scanner, it really doesn't define the supermarket, which you could say is just a shop with a high volume, low margin model for business. It facilitates a supermarket doing things it would otherwise struggle to do. So you don't need to have a barcode scanning to make a supermarket, but it certainly helps it run more efficiently. And I think there's another interesting observation about blockchain, which is quite significant. We think the solution is to decentralize the power system. But if we try and drive a decentralized power system with a centralized accounting system, we think it's going to clash. And it's a clash that will soon at some point in the scale up, but bite us in a big way. And we're really trying to persuade Joe Public, everyday people, to become their own power stations and traders of electricity or citizen utilities. And that's the solution to expensive renewable electricity as we see it. We don't want to lumber them with data protection issues and other centralization headaches. And blockchains is a sidestep really of all of that. And we really also don't want like LIBOR type scandals to hit electricity. I don't know how many of you remember that. where someone can manipulate a central amount or quantity by a very small amount, but it's enough to create a huge fraud because of the scale. So I think blockchain is the ideal tool for decentralized energy because it's so decentralized itself. And a bit more about Power Ledger. We've got 35 employees, primarily from Perth. We're doing a lot of work in India at the moment, and that certainly suits us. And we're really excited by the whole Indian mindset. I think it feels like the people in India are much less encumbered by professional structures and interests that maintain the status quo. And I think India has a parallel with the take-up of mobile phones in Africa. They're behind, but because they're behind, they can also leapfrog over and beyond. And I think while perhaps India is behind in water provision and farming, as well as centralised electricity, and the conjunction of water and electricity might help leapfrog ahead of the West or the East. I think just as a little example might illustrate, Raj, the farmer, buys solar PV and a battery and gets himself clean green pump water for his farm. And when he's done pumping in the afternoon, he stores the electricity, which he then sells to Pavna and her daughter Kara to use for lighting in the evening. Pavna pays Raj for the electricity, and Raj uses that to pay off the solar and the battery he's just bought. And Pavna saves on diesel generated lighting, and Kara saves on getting particulate respiratory illness. And the Indian taxpayer saves on the subsidy of both the solar and the diesel because they currently subsidise both. And Raj pays off his investment, and Pavna and her daughter get clean electricity and better health. And that's the triple win. And the government can invest that money elsewhere. And as the story goes on, the village gets more solar and battery capacity and eventually and gradually becomes a virtual nested microgrid with the same capacity as if it were on the main grid. I think these solar pumps and community batteries can become really an integral part of a local resilient energy system where quality and reliability of power is significantly improved. So I think the end point of this is a highly resilient electricity network that any first world country can only hope for. And if you go back to the good old days when electricity came without the carbon dioxide price tag, electricity was pumped out by a steady baseload generation of nuclear and coal, and small adjustments in the quantity of output were made, and wholesale and retail could adjust prices every quarter. And if that put people off electricity, they could turn to gas, so the system was in a kind of stability. But when the era of climate awareness arrived, this all changed, and suddenly you've got variable input of supply, which had to be balanced, and the wholesale price in high penetration of variable renewable countries started varying really wildly. And retailers have had to absorb this, and the system exhibits increasingly expensive electricity and decreasing stability. And the answer, many people and we now believe, is a reconfiguration of the grids and with it the whole electricity market. And with that, we make every home, a wonder prosumer and consumer and producer pair, effectively at the mercy of and in command of the opportunity to arbitrage any hourly fluctuations in price. So I think that a stable future for energy in any country that has ambitions for renewables requires a different configuration of many of these elements, and it's predicated on rapidly changing price, and one that sometimes goes into negative. Prosumers provide for themselves and each other, and to some extent the wider grid network, and arbitrage opportunities in terms of like the delta of price and time and space can be explored. And that's what Power Ledger has produced, and we're looking for partners to develop that with. So far we have projects with BSES in India, which I can share this slide deck, and we're very proud to be working with the India Smart Grid Forum in the state of Uttar Pradesh. We've got a project there, and also with Tata Power, we're doing a peer-to-peer project, and our platform includes dynamic pricing, nodal pricing, preferential trading, settlement into traditional payment and settlement systems, as well as different configurations. So on that note, I'll hand over to my other esteemed colleagues and look forward to the questions.
Yeah, thank you, Gemma, for showing us what Power Ledger is doing with the blockchain technology and helping with peer-to-peer and your interest in India. So, and we are doing project with you. So ISGF already doing 2 projects with you on this peer-to-peer trading. And thank you. Now I will request Oriel to express his views on what EWF is doing, mostly on the REC side, how you are doing, what you are doing on that renewable energy certificate processing. And also on that, how we are helping the integration of the flexibility resources, how you are building a different digitalization layer between the market operation layer and the customer asset layer that EWF is doing. So over to you, Ori, this. And we'll request that you keep it short. Some 5 to 6 minutes will be enough for you, hopefully.
Thank you so much. I'll try my best. Just please, could you confirm that you're seeing my presentation full screen?
Yeah, it's visible.
Great, perfect. Well, first of all, thanks for the invite. It's a pleasure being once more collaborating with the ISGF in participating in this kind of presentations. It's an incredible opportunity to share our work, and that's what I'll try to do in this short presentation in the next minutes. Maybe a few words about myself. My name is Uriol. I'm the Director of Business Development at EnergyWeb. And what the mission of EnergyWeb is developing digital solutions that contribute to the decarbonization of the energy industry. The problem we are trying to tackle with our technology is essentially giving response to an existing situation in the energy sector, in which we are seeing how the investment poured into our electricity grids is coming or will be coming mainly from customers rather than utilities. So the investment coming at the edges of the grid is eclipsing the one invested centrally. And that, of course, is giving entrance to our grids with megawatts and gigawatts of flexibility capacity coming from things such as distributed storage, smart loads, electric vehicles, and of course, renewables. But as other panelists have said before, we do not always have the necessary infrastructure to leverage that flexible capacity. And that's precisely what we try to ease or to alleviate with our technology. It's the transition between this unilateral model in which there's a single relationship between the customer and the utility into a decentralized model in which everything takes the form of a mesh of interconnected devices, let it be DERs or big power plants, individuals, smart buildings, you name it, all of them having their right or their, let's say, capacity to deliver services to the grid and therefore being remunerated, being rewarded for it. So what EnergyWeb has developed that accomplishes this purpose is what we call the EnergyWeb DOS, the Decentralized Operating System, that essentially creates a digital infrastructure layer that connects the two worlds that we see in the energy sector. On one side, the customer and asset layer, where the actual hardware is, where when we buy Tesla and connect it to the grid, that's our device, where there's batteries, windmills, PV panels, and so forth, with the market layer, where grid operators and different market operators run the marketplaces where this energy needs to be traded. What our infrastructure acts like is as a platform that it's completely open, it's not proprietary, it's not private, it's an open blockchain that serves to assign permissions and rights to every device that tries to participate into those markets. So grid operators and other market operators, such as, for example, a marketplace for renewable energy certificates, have a good overview and has the capacity of assigning entry conditions for those devices so they can self-register and start giving services or, say, providing supply to these markets. In the following slides, I'll double-click a bit on the precise ways in which we do this. Maybe first to work with about whom are we doing it with. So EnergyWeb started as a company in 2017, and it came off the radar when we gathered the support of 10 initial utilities. If we fast forward to 2021, what we are doing right now is maintaining an ecosystem of between 60 and 70 energy companies that are working in developing projects on top of our infrastructure, spanning dozens of projects across 4 continents. And what we enjoy via this format is that every time there's a grid operator that starts working with EnergyWeb, later on, any OEM, any manufacturer of equipment whose devices are made compatible with our technology, they can automatically start providing services to whichever grids they are deployed in. For example, if we are working with a transmission system operator in Austria or a distribution system operator in Spain, any device that is compatible with our technology could provide services to any of those grids if deployed in those. So maybe just to mention some of the use cases that are being worked or let's say are being deployed on a commercial scale. None of these are POCs, they are functioning products. I'll be mentioning 3 of the areas in which we are investing our efforts. First, it's called Energy Web Flex, and it has to do with increasing the flexibility and resiliency of our grids. Second, it's called Origin. It's our solution for tracking and tracing renewable energy certificates, or green attributes. And the third, it's called Energy Web Trace, which serves the purpose of tracing and tracking the life cycle of DERs that are deployed on our electricity grids. About Flex, maybe just to guide the audience to the workflow in which we normally onboard these DERs and enable them to participate in markets, everything starts, and that's precisely the only or the main use of the blockchain that we make in our solutions. Everything starts by creating a digital passport for the devices that interact with the grid. A digital passport that captures which device are we talking about and what are the capacities of that device in terms of providing services to the grid. The model, the capacity, the energy that it can contain, or the activation time. On a similar manner, on the other side, what we do is have the grid operator, both in transmission and distribution level, to set up entry conditions for that device to be accepted onto the marketplaces they operate. So a TSO may decide that only a device capable of providing a certain amount of flexible capacity will be accepted onto the market they run. Or maybe it's the RAM rate, the activation time that needs to be compliant with a certain magnitude in order to be accepted. Once the entry conditions have been set, and every device we want to integrate has its corresponding digital identity, we can have a situation like the one showed in this slide, in which we are digitizing batteries, electric vehicles, PV panels, even individuals or smart buildings. And all these digital passports attempt to self-register onto different marketplaces. If we follow here the lines uniting the different blocks, we could see how, for example, the first battery has been accepted into the TSO application registry, therefore giving it access to those markets, and also the DSO. But other devices, depending on their characteristics, will only be given access to certain markets. Therefore, reducing by huge orders of magnitudes the amount of paperwork or, let's say, bureaucracy that the device owner has to go through in order to register the same device, maybe in 2 different markets. Examples of projects we are doing in these domains are, for example, with 3 of the esteemed grid operators that work with us, Elia 50 Hertz, both in Germany and Belgium, with work mainly oriented to integrating electric vehicles into grid balancing programs. We have APG in Austria, that they did a brilliant project to also integrate batteries to provide frequency restoration services to the national grid. And Electrical Demse in Spain, where they are enabling multiple of their industrial customers to participate in a demand response program to provide congestion management services to the grid. To jump into the next big block, just a quick word about another of our solutions called Origin, which is essentially a toolkit that allows us to set up marketplaces to issue, post, and trade renewable energy certificates. It all starts with the same workflow. We digitize generation devices, and we are able to translate the readings of the energy outputs of those devices into digital certificates that are later on published onto a marketplace where buyers can acquire them. Now, one of the strongest partnerships, or let's say things that we really enjoy seeing in this space, is that the certificates issued through Origin, in most cases, are not Energy Web certificates or some sort of standard that we created, but rather IREC certificates, International Renewable Energy Certificates, who are our partners in these endeavors. What we are doing is working with many utilities and entities across IREC countries to, on top of Origin, and therefore on top of the Energy Web blockchain, set up entire marketplaces for renewables, where renewable energy generators can publish its supply and renewable energy buyers can acquire to offset their demand. Finally, the third block in which we are working, it's called Energy Web Trace, and essentially builds up on our capacity to assign digital identities onto the assets we work with. But in this case, we use it to keep track of every event that occurs in the life cycle of that asset in order for the responsible party in every market of retiring an asset at the end of its life cycle to have the information on when and where that device needs to be retired. For example, let's envision a battery that is deployed on a physical premise. Every time that battery goes through an event that affects or shortens its life or its useful life, the responsible entity behind that event will cryptographically sign the digital identity of that battery. For example, at the moment of its installation, the digital identity would count with the digital signature of the manufacturer. The moment it's installed, it will be the installer who will add its signature. Same every time that battery is transferred of owner. Imagine that it's resold into somebody else. That will be imprinted on the digital record, on the blockchain of that digital identity of the battery. We are doing a project precisely around this in Belgium in partnership with a grid operator, DSO called Fluvius, which is our member for many years now, and BBAT, which is the entity responsible for the retirement of DERs of the market in Belgium, in which BBAT can precisely track every asset that has been deployed on the grid Fluvius manages in order to streamline the recycling process of all those materials. So I really hope I stuck to the promise of doing a short presentation. I understand it's a lot of information, but I'd be extremely delighted to take it offline to answer any questions or comments you have about the presentation. You have my email here. So very, very happy to establish any conversation that can help us expand our offering, especially onto the India market, which would be an extreme pleasure. So once again, thank you for inviting me, and I hope you found the presentation insightful.
Thank you, Aurel. And obviously, people will connect with you with their questions offline. And thank you for sharing your views of what EW is doing for using the digital passport for integrating the flexible resources with the market, and also on energy traceability and digitalizing the assets. Thank you. And I will request Lorian to what Ban Ki-moon is, request Lorian to express his views what Ban Ki-moon is currently doing, and about the pilot in Africa where they have integrated the cryptocurrencies of Bitcoin with the smart meter prepaid meter, smart prepaid metric payment system. So over to you, Lorian.
Thank you very much. I think what I would like to do is discuss two topics. Just to begin with, I want to discuss blockchain as an industry in general terms, not to describe what it is and what it's about, but some of the insights that we have gathered in the last almost 10 years now that we've been involved with blockchain. And then what I'll do is I'll describe the use case that we have here in South Africa, which we're expanding to other countries in terms of energy payments and that dealing with cryptocurrency. So I think just to talk a bit generally about blockchain, what we have been seeing in these presentations and other presentations like it is that there are a lot of interesting use cases that are being explored right now in blockchain. A lot of interesting ways that data is being managed using a decentralized blockchain. And so this is going to be something that remains to be seen how that plays out. Obviously, all these companies have been involved building solutions on top of blockchain, but it still remains to be seen how that's going to pan out, what business models will be viable in terms of using a blockchain. But what I would like to just say about the blockchain itself, and remember, we don't only have a single blockchain, we've got many blockchains. And the reason for that is because it's still sort of uncertain how blockchain as a technology platform or framework is going to play out in terms of building these solutions. And what we see is really, obviously there's this idea of a public ledger, and then these private ledgers that are being developed. And, you know, I think that it'll be better for people to understand, and this is my firm belief and others, that blockchain isn't so much like a database that can be deployed at a company or shared amongst different companies, but it's actually something more akin to the internet itself, which is this universal data network that is maintained in a decentralized way. But the decentralization is not as a security measure, a way to make sure that data cannot be corrupted or the integrity be messed with. But the decentralized aspect really, as it pertains to blockchain, is only there for resiliency or redundancy. So if miners who are maintaining that network, if some of them drop off the network, then simply because of the decentralized nature of that blockchain, what we have is we have other miners who can then step in to provide the transaction processing, and that means we don't have downtime, and that would be typical in a centrally managed system. So I don't want anybody to ever think that decentralization, and when Bitcoin was developed and invented, and that's where all these blockchains have bloomed from, the decentralized aspect was not to create something that was incorruptible, but more as a data resiliency aspect. And that speaks to the regulatory aspect as well, because obviously, and speakers prior to the session have mentioned the regulatory aspect and why it's so important that governments and regulatory authorities start looking at regulating information and the businesses that operate on the blockchain. You see, if we were to have a purely decentralized system, then you can see how that would be impossible to regulate, because if participants are maintaining the system in a decentralized way where they don't have to have licenses or anything like that, then simply having that system would be something that would be impossible to regulate. And Bitcoin as the progenitor blockchain, it had at its heart that idea of proof of work. And the proof of work, again, is not a security mechanism, even though a lot of people believe that that is in fact why we have something called proof of work. And proof of work means expending enormous amounts of energy to make sure that that those puzzles are solved, and then they get to update the blockchain. The proof of work, its sole purpose was to make sure that the only companies that could marshal massive amounts of resources and make massive investments into infrastructure would be the ones who would be able to mine the transactions and mine those blocks on the network. And by the fact that they are now need to have large investment, that means that they become visible to law enforcement and regulators. And that means if they decide to corrupt that blockchain by putting fake transactions or whatever it is on the blockchain, then they would be accountable to the regulatory authority and to the law enforcement. So the decentralized nature is not about trying to create a system that anybody can enter into and it becomes that's the security. The security was all around the proof of work system to make sure companies become large enough so that they become accountable to regulatory authorities. So I don't believe, and many people that I've been involved with for the last almost 10 years, don't believe that this is going to be a world where we have these small proprietary type blockchains that are purpose-built for specific industries. You know, in the same way, we don't have an internet where we have an internet for video streaming and an internet for social media and an internet for data transfer messaging. We have a universal data network, and blockchain to me is going to become something that is a universal ledger, a universal data network. And all these use cases that we see within energy, within the media, they are going to be leveraging this universal data network in the same way that the whole world leverages the internet as a universal data network for all these different use cases. So this is going to be, I think, become more apparent as we start seeing all these different experiments in blockchain, all these different consensus mechanisms eventually start showing those flaws. And I think we're already starting to see even networks like Ethereum having issues with the nature of those blockchains simply by the fact that they are trying all these different strategies and technical implementations which don't seem to have a long-term plan. So this is just some thoughts around blockchain. To summarize, I think that we are going to end up with a single universal blockchain, which will then be able to serve all these different use cases. And it's not impossible to imagine. We do have a universal internet, which maintains and manages all our data needs with all use cases. And so blockchain to me is going to become that. Now, the question is which blockchain? And I do have my opinions about that, but I won't share them in this part unless there's a question that would like to ask me. Now let me now shift over into the what we've been doing here at CENTBI. CENTBI is a payments company, and we've used the title of the Bitcoin white paper really as our purpose. We've been always very excited about the idea of digital cash. And specifically a cash network that was very low cost. Because even if you think about payment companies out there like PayPal or Stripe, they haven't been able to reduce costs of payments down very much. I think, at the end of the day, you're going to be paying 30 US cents minimum for any sort of transaction. And the Bitcoin protocol always had in mind that it would become a very low cost digital cash payment system, and not just for microtransactions of less than $1 or something like that, but actually cents and nanocents, fractions of cents. And so CENTBI as a company decided to pursue that and see if we could create a payment system and a payment network that leveraged the Bitcoin protocol and not the BTC protocol that has changed from the original design of Bitcoin. The original protocol at the moment is the BSV protocol. And that is the protocol that really can facilitate very low cost payments. So here in South Africa, what we've done is we've built out a payment ecosystem, which makes it very easy for people to be able to acquire Bitcoin SV. Because if you want people to be able to spend Bitcoin, you have to make it easy for them to get it. So for the last few years, what we've done is we've made it possible now for people here in South Africa to acquire Bitcoin SV at every supermarket on just about every street corner in the country. We have a CENTBI wallet, which is a Bitcoin wallet. And inside that wallet, we've now integrated a lot of value-added services. And the first service that we put in today was electricity, because the use case that we developed about 5 years ago was for people to be able to use Bitcoin to be able to pay for energy. And so the prototype that we built, the proof of concept that we built, was a smart metering system, which integrated directly into the Bitcoin network. And that meant that anybody who wanted to could then make payments for energy on these smart meters. Also, not just a smart meter, but what we call a prepaid meter, where you would actually just buy a token, which represented a number of kilowatt hours. And that proof of concept was really great. It demonstrated the utility of being able to use Bitcoin as a payment system, especially in African countries where digital payment methods are quite difficult to get. We have a significant number of people out here who don't have access to digital payment methods, but also youth, teenagers, and young adults. They do want to be able to make purchases for digital goods and services. And so what we are finding now is a lot of success with our wallet here in South Africa, where students, youngsters can easily, they download CENTBI wallet, and then they top up their wallet with Bitcoin at any of the shops around the country. Just like an ATM, you'd go there and top up your wallet. We also have a bank integration inside CENTBI wallet, so if you do have a bank account, you can top up your bank. And we're about to roll out a top-up feature around the world where you can use debit cards and credit cards. So what we've really done now is create an ecosystem where people can download a wallet. They can then top up their wallet with Bitcoin, and very easily and simply make payments for things, electricity, but now we've bundled a whole lot of other things in there, like mobile airtime and data, Uber and Uber Eats and Netflix, Spotify and Deezer, all these sorts of digital goods that the youth market would want, but didn't typically have access to. And what we're seeing now is really the promise that Bitcoin had 10 years ago, which was to create a financially inclusive, low-cost, global and accessible payment system that anybody could use and could then have access to all these financial services. But also, most importantly, and this was also something that Bitcoin was built with in mind, is the regulatory
Lorian,
aspect.
sorry to interrupt. If you can sum it up quickly.
I'll finish that.
Yeah, please go ahead. Not to interrupt you. Please continue.
Oh, okay. So I'll just finish off then on the regulatory aspect. One of the most important things about blockchain, and specifically payments on blockchain, is complying with all the rules around payments, money transfer. And, the nature of Bitcoin being a transparent ledger does make it very easy for companies like CentB to be able to do all the anti-money laundering, the counter-terrorist financing reporting. What we do now is we are actually working very closely with our local regulators here, the South African Reserve Bank, the tax authorities, the Financial Intelligence Center, and we're demonstrating to them that we can now provide reporting on payments and do all the right sorts of reports and that are required when it comes to payments on blockchain. Blockchain was never meant to be an anonymous system. In fact, it can't be. And those that are trying to become anonymous, those are the ones who are going to certainly be shut down and pressured, because they just won't be able to continue. So I think what we've done really is prove the viability of Bitcoin as a payment system. And we're finding a lot of success here in South Africa, and soon we'll be expanding across the globe. But thank you very much. I think I'll leave it to the questions now.
Yeah, thank you, Lorian, for your thoughts on how blockchain can be a universal ledger and how the applications will be increased with that, and also your initiative in South Africa, how we can integrate with Bitcoin with this smart meter prepaid metering. So now we'll request Mr. Giroti, as Mr. Giroti is working on various energy use cases. So I will request Mr. Giroti that if you can express your views on the thought that how the blockchain can transform the utility business processes, and what are the challenges that utilities are going to face and how to overcome those challenges. Over to you, Mr. Giroti.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. Are you able to see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, just a quick intro about Energy Blockchain Consortium. We basically are working with a number of utilities, cities, state regulators, and a number of businesses, and really in multiple areas. We actually do a lot of education. We do a lot of webinars, conferences. We work with a number of utilities, providing them with some ideas on how they can embrace blockchain. And we also develop use cases. We've developed a use case catalog that we use as a basis to work with a number of these members who have joined us. We also are working with IEEE and other organizations in developing standards. And last but not the least, we are engaged in over 8 pilots right now in the United States and Canada. We also have a blockchain accelerator program for organizations who are interested in rapidly ramping up on using the blockchain technology. We give them a ready set of use cases. In fact, they can actually use our toolkit to ramp up quickly on some of these prevailing blockchains, and they can actually directly deploy some of these use cases in a pilot mode. I don't want to spend too much time, but I just want to give you a highlight of what's going on into the US and the Canadian market. While most of the players are focused in the crypto space. In the US and the Canadian market, there is a huge appetite for non-crypto use cases. And for the non-crypto use cases, we don't have to use the proof of work. We can actually use the proof of stake or proof of authority or even proof of importance. There are about 5 or 6 use cases that Energy Blockchain Consortium is engaged in. One is the aggregation of the DER assets for ISOs. ISOs are very interested in learning about how DER assets can be aggregated so that they can be integrated within the marketplace as an asset, as a quality asset, as a quality ancillary asset that can be used by market participants to buy and sell electricity. Another pilot we are working with is developing a net zero home. What that means is that in a typical home, you are likely to have a solar panel, a battery storage, and some of the people also are starting to get EVs or EVSEs for their EVs. So what we are developing is we're trying to figure out how to create a net zero home through the balancing of the energy production through the solar panel and the storage through the battery storage. Combine that with how effectively we can do the charging and even discharging of EV, so that we can use some of the battery storage of the EV into the house. So we're trying to develop a net zero home, and this net zero home actually is going to be scaled into a development community. With the development community, one of the community has 35 houses and another community has about 100 plus houses. So the idea is to have a net zero home using blockchain technology and to develop a community of net zero homes in an aggregated manner. The developer is also thinking of using the aggregated capacity as the ancillary capacity and integrate that with the utility. I talked about the EV smart charging and managed charging, where the EV owner has the opportunity to to manage the charging and discharging of their vehicle and to also do smart charging so that they're able to maximize and minimize their cost but maximize the charging. There is one specific use case that is getting a lot of attention from not just the utilities who have to manage their RPS goals, but also from businesses who have some sustainability goals that they have developed actually for themselves for 2030, 2040, and 2050. Many of the organizations are looking into clean energy and they have developed some goals. So they're very keen on using blockchain technology for the purpose of UN SDG goals for a net zero carbon footprint. So many organizations who are looking to achieve some of these sustainability goals are looking at blockchain technology to provide them with a non-crypto use case to be able to manage their carbon assets, GHGs, SF6, nitrous oxide, and so on and so forth. Security, resiliency, and net zero is a key requirement that the US Department of Defense has defined for the next few years. US DoD is very interested in making sure that the bases are secure and resilient. And the energy resiliency is very important in defining that resiliency for the DoD. So we are working with a specific instance of a use case where we are collecting the data securely using blockchain technology, and we are trying to figure out a way to use different generation within the base itself and integrate that with the blockchain technology and the smart meter technology to create a net zero base. We also have a lot of interest from 2 different states in the United States who are keen in developing a local marketplace for REC. And the REC marketplace does not exist in these particular areas. In the US, it's a very fragmented market. If those of you who are aware of the US market, it's very fragmented when it comes to REC as suggested by the Energy Web Foundation. But there is a significant opportunity to create some type of a standardized approach to REC marketplace. And many of the states that we are working with are looking to use blockchain as the foundation for a marketplace for REC trading. These are traditional REC certificates, solar REC certificates, basically. Now, although there is a huge appetite for non-crypto use cases, we also believe that two simple crypto use cases are getting a lot of attention from different organizations in the US and Canada. One is the energy asset marketplace, and I think that energy asset marketplace is a very viable use case where energy assets are uploaded into an exchange or a marketplace, and these assets could range from any type of assets. It doesn't even have to be a DER asset. It could be literally any asset, including an asset such as a person. A person is an asset as well because a person has a digital ID. So any asset or any buyer of an asset is basically a participant in the energy marketplace. Now, this marketplace is not an ISO-based wholesale marketplace. This is just a regional marketplace to buy and sell energy assets. And last but not the least, one of the use cases that has received the most attention in the US and of course globally is the peer-to-peer energy trading. This is where user A is able to buy and sell electricity to user B. In some cases, you can have a microgrid where this can be a standalone solution. But in the US and the Canadian market, there is a need for the utilities to integrate for the purpose of achieving a very high power factor. Because otherwise you have a very low power factor and the quality of electricity delivery is low, which results in a lot of dissonance and impact on the devices, specifically the inductance load gets messed up actually if the power factor is low and the quality of electricity is weak actually. So even though peer-to-peer trading itself is a viable option, but it has a huge impact on the utilities, and we are working on the utility side of integration of the impact of peer-to-peer trading into the energy existing assets. So let me pause there because I don't think we have too much time to give people an opportunity to ask questions, but I'll end my presentation here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Giroti, and thank you for sharing your views on all the use cases that you are doing currently in US and Canada on the EV and peer-to-peer. And we'll be happy to know the results of your peer-to-peer research on the utility from the utility side. What's the impact on the utility on that? So as for the questions, I think all the questions have been answered on that only by Oriol and others. So currently there was no question, I think, that is there. All the questions have been answered from the panelists and the other speakers who were there in the session. So with this, thank you everyone. I'll be closing the session, and thank you everyone, and thank you Mr. Giroti, Oriol, Gemma, and Lorian for participating in the panel and sharing your views on various use cases of blockchain. And I will request all the panelists, all the speakers to switch on their video so we can have a photograph. Oriol and Lorian, please kindly switch on your video. Or you can check the pic. It's done.
Thank you everybody.
Thank you.
Good night, good evening, good day to all.
Thank you everyone for joining.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Thank you everyone.
Thank you. Yes.
I have to speak now.
Before ending the session, I would request all the participants to kindly participate in the polling, and the links have been posted in the chat box itself. So please go ahead and kindly share your experience. And I would like to invite Mr. Reggie Kumar Pillai, President, India Smart Grid Forum, Chairman, Global Smart Grid Federation, for a vote of thanks. Welcome, sir.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all the participants, all the esteemed speakers who joined from different parts of the world. Really happy to have this deep dive workshop which we have conducted today as part of ACEF. There were some suggestions, some talk about how do we scale it up, how are we going to move forward. Well, the peer-to-peer trading platform which is established in Lucknow with the MVVNL, the utility in Lucknow, as well as with the Tata Power Delhi distribution in Delhi. Both the platforms are totally integrated with the billing systems. The smart meter which are installed in Lucknow in the prosumers and consumers premises are integrated with the blockchain platform. So the kilowatt hour of electricity which is exported to the grid by a prosumer having rooftop solar, that is captured in the blockchain platform, and that is integrated back with the utilities billing system. So we are not using any cryptocurrency or anything. And first of all, use of cryptocurrency in India today is not legally permitted. There is a question mark about the legal applicability of cryptocurrencies in the country. And in any case, the trade is in kilowatt hour. The regulated tariff of electricity is in kilowatt hour. So we are only doing this trade in kilowatt hour of electricity, which is generated by a prosumer sold to a consumer at a mutually agreed price. So with our experience of about 3 to 4 months of running it with different trading rules. So let me take a couple of minutes to explain this, although many people have left. According to the UP net metering policy today, the surplus electricity exported to the grid, a prosumer gets 2 rupees per kilowatt hour. Whereas a consumer at a commercial rate, if he need to buy electricity from the grid, he pay 8 to 9 rupees. So anywhere in between is a win-win situation for both prosumer and consumer. So we put different trading rules every month, and finally most of the people came when we conducted a stakeholder workshop towards the end of March. They said that we don't have time, we don't want to do different trading. It's not like stock exchange where we trade in large volumes. This is small money, so but it is better to have a certainty. So we recommended to the regulators, recommended to the utility and the government that every year what could be the sell price and buying price for the prosumers and consumers, that could be decided by the regulator, and that gives you certainty. So about 5 rupees 65 paise to sell gives about 3 rupees plus for the prosumer who is selling, and for the person who is buying is still saving around 2.5 to 3 rupees. So this is something which came from the experience. Something similar we are doing in Delhi. Delhi we have more participants, about 145 participants, and both this pilot at this point in time, as Mr. R.P. Singh had mentioned, is on regulatory sandbox. Based on this, we will make the recommendation and the regulator can consider issuing permanent regulation. So this is mock trade, not actual money being transacted. So as I said, the blockchain platform is integrated back to the utilities billing system. So a shadow bill can being produced, which had there been P2P trading regulations in place and the prices been in place, how much money they would have, each one of them would have saved in a month, they can see it. That is what is being presented today. So there was a comment from Mr. Ganesh Srinivasan about settlement, the deviation settlement. So this is back in 2017-18, when we wanted to do some pilot projects in India, we approached Central Electricity Regulatory Commission and we went with the green certificate. So that is the another very evolved, matured use case around the world. So we wanted to do our green certificates on blockchain platform. At that point in time, they were doing some regulatory changes, and instead CERC suggested the bigger problem is deviation settlement, the scheduling and deviation settlement between all the market participants. So we invested a lot of time and energy onto it, and the scheduling part was completely done, in fact, and due to change of officers and senior people, they retire or very soon, and with the changes in the management, we could not take it forward. And we have now, thereafter we moved on to this peer-to-peer use case which UP wanted to do, and that is something which we have demonstrated. The next in the scaling up, one area where we would be concentrating would be on the KUSUM scheme, a scheme of Government of India for actually the solarizing the irrigation pump sets. So irrigation pump set, when fitted with solar panels, is going to be used for 100-150 days or almost 200 days in a year. That solar panel which is going to generate electricity is available for the pumping it back to the grid. So in net metering policies in most of the states, they get much less money. So this entire KUSUM scheme can have it's about 60%, 60% subsidy from Government of India and the respective state government in that. So the farmer, if they can, those who invest 40% into the solar panel, they can sell electricity to a commercial buyer at a higher price than the net metering price. The scheme can attract traction. So we are, and at the same time, there is a very interesting case in Europe. The European Union is going to implement a border carbon tax from 2023. That means any product and services exported to the European Union would attract a carbon tax at if 70% of the electricity is not used from green sources. So this is going to be a win-win situation where, just take the case of a set of farmers whose irrigation pump sets are solarized. They have surplus electricity that can be sold to a medium or micro enterprise which is producing some products which is being exported to Europe on a blockchain platform. They can contract it at a lower price, than what today they are buying from the grid at 8 rupees or 9 rupees. They can buy from a farmer at 5 rupees or 5.5 rupees. And then at the same time, they get the green certificate for exporting their products into the European Union. This is an area where we are currently concentrating, and we hope this will take off. With that, I conclude this today's workshop, and I take this opportunity to thank all the esteemed speakers and participants from around the world. We had speakers from USA and Europe, and from Australia and South Africa and India. So last year also, in fact, at Asia Clean Energy Forum, we had done a blockchain workshop, which was more into the use cases and technology part of it, which had actually went, instead of 1.5 hours, it went for 3 hours, and we had close to 1,000 participants throughout the 3-hour session. So thank you very much for everybody's interest, and this is an area which will going to attract more traction and see more use cases and more scaling up of these projects. Thank you very much, and back to you, Reena.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you to all our participants for joining us, and a very special thanks to all our panelists for joining us for the workshop. Hope everyone has participated in the polling. If not, then the links are still there in the chat box. So I request you to kindly share your views and experience through polling. I would also like to inform that ISGF's second workshop at ACEF 2021 is on artificial intelligence and robotics for electric utilities is tomorrow at 5:30 p.m. IST, and the registration link for the same has been posted in the chat box itself. Thank you, everyone, and I would like to invite Reena ma'am for a few words.
Thank you so much, Parul, and thank you once again to all our participants and our esteemed panelists and speakers for today's workshop. I see that someone in the chat box has also written regarding for more training programs from ISGF. So would like to inform that ISGF conducts training on the new upcoming technologies on a regular basis. And Parul, can you just put the link, joining link also across on the chat box, so that in case somebody is interested to register and participate, they can go through the training. So the next training program that we are organizing is on Smart Grid Foundation course, which is starting on July 7th. So you're most welcome to be part of that training program. Apart from that, we have a detailed program on blockchain for utilities, AI and robotics, electric vehicle and charging infrastructure. And we also have one on cybersecurity and smart metering. So you're most welcome to join and make use of the trainings that we have put together. So with that, thank you so much. And we look forward to your participation in our future programs. And we have back-to-back workshops at ACEF starting today, tomorrow on AI and robotics. Day after, we'll be talking about the district cooling systems. And lastly, on Thursday, we'll be talking about the electric cooking, the way forward. So hope to have your participation in all our programs at ACEF. And for more information, please do visit our website, which updates you regularly on our different endeavors and our research and papers and white papers. So with that, I would like to thank you again and have a good evening. Please stay safe and take care. Thank you so much.